Colleen Goodrich loves being a grandmother, and when she's playing with her grandchildren, it's hard to tell who's having the most fun. But she hasn't always been able to spend as much time as she wanted with them. In fact, she wasn't allowed to babysit them.
My daughter said, "You can't look after them alone, Mom, because if you go low and you're by yourself, you can't help them and you can't help yourself."
Going low meant that her blood sugar had dropped because Colleen is a type 1 diabetic. She wasn't diagnosed until she was about 39, 6 years after a diabetic pregnancy. And because Colleen is very health conscious and disciplined, she managed her condition very well for a lot of years. But as diabetics know, that management becomes more difficult over time.
After about 10 years, you lose the signs and signals that warn you when your blood sugar is too high or too low. And even when you try really hard and do everything that you know to do, you sometimes just go wonky.
It didn't happen without warning. So unless we were right on top of what she was doing, what the activities had been, remembering what we'd been doing, remembering when there was food intake, you could get caught out.
When her blood sugar dropped, as it began to do unexpectedly, Colleen would become disoriented and confused. She stopped driving except for very short distances and gave up doing many of the things she loved because it just wasn't safe for her to continue doing them. And the final straw was not being allowed to be alone with the grandchildren.
Oh, it's just, I understood it, but I wasn't happy about it. And I thought it was kind of the big push that I needed to make me make the decision. I just thought, I'm going to check on what this is.
What Colleen decided to check into was an islet cell transplant, an experimental procedure being done at the University of Alberta in Edmonton, and one that she seemed to be a perfect candidate for.
They gave me a list of tests to get done, and the results were all good. I'd been a very careful diabetic, but in actual fact, lots of people have had this transplant who were in much worse shape than I am.
In the end, Colleen had 2 transplants of islet cells. These are the cells in the pancreas that produce insulin. And although she's not completely free of diabetes today, the results are still astonishing.
I was fully off insulin for about 3 months. Since then, I've taken 12 units of insulin, but only the slow-acting kind. There's 2 different kinds. The slow-acting just gives you just a base.
When Kirsten, our daughter, kind of gave her the go-ahead to, yes, look after the grandchildren, it's okay now. I mean, that was like the sun was back in the sky.
Babysitting. Babysitting was the great thing, that I could now look after the girls. And I mean, that might seem like a really simple thing, but I never had that before.
Colleen and her family have been able to resume their life, complete with grandchildren, dance lessons, and extended holidays. And although the procedure that Colleen had done was an experimental one at the time, it's now considered standard of care. To find out more and to find out whether you're eligible for it, visit the University of Alberta Clinical Islet Transplant Program website. In Port Alberni, I'm Nancy Wilmot.